Welcome back to another edition of Down to the Wire, again alongside my NHL analyst Nolan Thode. Nolan, we had a crazy trade deadline day today that we will get to shortly. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, I'm happy. It's been a long time since, we haven't been at school during the trade deadline day. So, a lot less going on. Typically we're at school checking our phones, checking Twitter, every single second just to see if anything came up. But, now that we're at home, it's a lot, more relaxed, and it's been a good day.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I'm glad that we were at home for once during a trade deadline day celebration here. And, like just to, I guess, second on your thought there with going on our phones every day and, checking Twitter. I was certainly doing that a lot today. I know that.
No, absolutely. Just trying to keep, in touch with all the news, lots of stuff going on around the league.
Well, last Monday, the Anaheim Ducks actually released a press statement saying that, we're going to move Zegras down to the AHL to help him transition into a full-time centerman. They had him on the wing just to get him used to the NHL. But I think this is a good idea by the Ducks to announce this to their fans because, there's transparency there. The fans know what's going on with the organization. I really like that, and I wish that more teams would do that.
Yeah, it's nice for them to come out and really, assure the fans that, nothing's going on in terms of, him not being able to play in the NHL. He's proven kind of that he can keep up. Obviously he's a skilled, young talent. But I think an important part for them is, him being able to be a center, not just in, playing in junior. They want him to be a center full time in the NHL, coming after Ryan Getzlaf. So if he was playing the wing on the team right now, they want him to, be able to, step up and play center, and doing that in the AHL is how it's going to help him, make that transition.
Eric Staal, in his first game as a Montreal Canadian, scored the game-winning goal in overtime against your Edmonton Oilers there with a, kind of a right-wing snapshot almost, kind of like a Kessel shot, but more less flex, I would say. But, he scored the game winner in his first game as a Hab. Great to see from Staal. But, ever since that game, Staal really hasn't been, producing offensively. However, he's been he really got brought in by the Montreal Canadiens to win faceoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. He got brought in for a lot more things than just, his play style. He could win faceoffs. He's a good veteran guy. Obviously had a good debut scoring the game winner. Habs fans, we're happy to see that. But, he does offer a lot to this, Habs team. They're very young, and, he just offers some veteran leadership. And I think, as time goes on, he'll get a little bit more comfortable in the lineup, and his impact will be felt even more.
So Colorado, they've been introducing a lot of rookies over this past season due to their, a lot of injuries, on the back end, up front. One of the rookies there, Kyle Burroughs, made his debut on last Monday against the Minnesota Wild, and he actually got in a fight with Nick Bjugstad. And, I would give Kyle Burroughs the credit there for winning the fight. It was very surprising to see a rookie fight in his first game, albeit for what it's worth, it shows that he has good grit, something that Colorado would like to see in the future, in my opinion. But, they held on to beat the Wild 5-4 during that game. The Wild, they have an abysmal power play. However, it's been heating up as of late. During that specific game, they scored 2 power play goals. So, it seems like both teams had a good game. Obviously, only one team can win.
Yeah, obviously it's tough, but 5-4, a high scoring game, so a lot of guys are getting on the score sheet. As for Burroughs, it's just nice to see this intensity, from a young guy coming in, stepping in the lineup. Just for him to, be able to drop the gloves in his first game just shows a lot of confidence, and hopefully he can work to be, a solid piece for the Avalanche in the future.
On Tuesday, Tace Thompson made his NHL debut against his older brother, Tage Thompson, when the Devils played the Sabres. I thought that was kind of a cool moment to throw in there because we love seeing all these rookies make their NHL debuts. Tace was recently signed by the Devils after his college season ended.
Yeah, and you got to think about those parents, Tage and Tace, they definitely like that sounding name, I guess. But, it was nice to see, I saw the post on social media of the two brothers, lining up side by side. And it's nice, Tage was a first round pick. So, Tace, didn't have that going for him, but, he's able to, get that contract and get into the NHL, good for him.
Jeremy Sweyman made his NHL debut for the Boston Bruins against the Philadelphia Flyers on Tuesday night. And, the Bruins are without, their top three defense. They're without their top two goalies in Rask and Halak. However, Rask is skating again and should be back soon. Jeremy Swayman is apparently their top goalie prospect for the Bruins. And, fans really got a glimpse of the future there. He made 40 saves in his first NHL win. And actually, during that game, Patrice Bergeron eclipsed 900 career points. So 2 accomplishments going to 2, great individuals for the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, the Boston Bruins, both Swayman and, Dan Vladar have, come in and made their NHL debuts this season and been phenomenal. So, it's credit to, those prospects, but also just the Bruins organization as a whole. Like you mentioned, they were missing a lot of pieces on defense as well. And, they're just super well coached and, it doesn't really matter who's in net, that they have a good chance. And I think, their whole team, just has a defensive mindset in general. And that really does, help a young goalie coming in, even if he did have to make 40 saves.
On Wednesday, the Canucks COVID case count was up to 21. You may hear reports saying that it's 19, but that's not including the taxi squad players. So players on the taxi squad for the Canucks did test positive for the coronavirus. If we compare this to other major leagues across North America, the Miami Marlins had 20 cases during their shortened MLB season there. And it's crazy because, the NHL announced that the Canucks are returning to play this week. I didn't think it was possible for the Canucks to return to play, let alone the government to allow it. But, it includes a lot of back-to-backs. It's 19 games in 31 days. So, it's going to be a crazy jam-packed schedule. And for Canuck fans, they're going to get a glimpse of the future here since I would assume most of their AHL players or taxi squad players would be playing in some of those games.
Yeah, exactly. In 31 days, if you're playing 19 games, you're going to see a lot of different lineups for the Canucks, just in terms of, energy and such. And it's going to be interesting to see, who really fills in these spots. It's just an unfortunate situation with the Canucks, and it just proves, how, viral this virus can be. It was only, a couple cases, and it just kind of sort of blew up, took over their whole organization as well as the families. So, a dangerous situation, but it will be nice to see them back on the ice, within the next couple of weeks. I think, they're slated to play on Saturday against the Oilers.
Yeah, and I think you're correct there. And, I just one last note here, on the Canucks, and I hope that, everyone gets back healthy and safe and, fully recovers from it. Cause, like we said last week, this is a really dangerous thing. And, it can impact some of their futures. And, Tanner Pearson just got signed to an extension. He was injured, I believe. He didn't have COVID. But, it's great to see that he's extended. But yeah, I'm just hoping that everyone fully recovers.
No, absolutely.
Some personal Pagcast news here. So actually, for the U18, the yearly U18 tournament that happens in the States, it's happening in Texas this year. A couple interviews to look out for. Logan Stankoven. He plays for the Kamloops Blazers. He's a 2021 NHL draft pick. I had the chance to sit down with him and talk with him. So he actually made the U18 Team Canada. And another person to mention is Ben Gudrow, Sarnia Sting goaltender. I had the chance again to sit down and interview him. So 2 interviews to be on the lookout as the U18s get underway next month, actually. So yeah, both those players made U18 Team Canada. I'm super proud of them. All their hard work is, not going unnoticed. I feel really bad for Ben Gudrow though, because there's no OHL season quite yet. And, Sarnia, they are part of the OHL. So hopefully, this actually puts such a big microscope on him to basically perform perfect if he wants to raise his draft stock. So the pressure's there for Ben, but it's not there for, Logan, since Logan has had a partial season to raise his draft stock.
No, exactly. I think this U18 tournament is, unlike any other, where some of the guys, haven't really, played this season. And I think it'll be interesting, highly competitive, and it'll just be nice to see all these prospects get on the ice.
And one other shout out to Burlington, Ontario native Shane Wright for making the team. He's 2022 NHL draft eligible. So, congrats to everyone that made it. And actually, there is no QMJHL players that's on the U18. So that comes as shocking news and actually very terrible news because, the QMJHL didn't release any of their players simply because they wanted their own league playoffs to start on time. Or get scheduled in a way where it would be starting on time. And I think that's brutal because you're taking away a kid's opportunity to really show off their skills on a national level. I mean, this is being broadcasted by TSN, and QMJHL doesn't have the TV rights, so you're taking away a kid's dreams essentially.
Yeah, like I mentioned, just talking about the tournament, it'll be nice to see, these prospects getting this last sort of chance, before the draft to kind of, make a name for themselves. And, they can obviously do so in the playoffs. But I think, this tournament as a whole, there's going to be a lot of scouts there, a lot of scouts, viewing these games. So, for the players that do play in the QMJHL, it's unfortunate that, they're not able to participate.
Montreal Canadiens announced on Wednesday that Brendan Gallagher, their heart and soul of the team, is out for 6 weeks. So that's basically for the whole season. And as we saw this past week, it seems as though Gallagher really gets that offense going, really gets that team going. They went 1-4-0 in their past 5 games. So you can make the argument that without Gallagher, the Habs are just a completely different team that's on the ice.
Yeah, Brendan Gallagher, I think, is the heart and soul of the Habs. You hit it. Yeah, you got that exactly right. I think, they're a different team when he's not out there on the ice. He's just, brings so much to the game. He got a great, complete two-way game. He's going to play, every role that you need him to. He's going to score you a goal. He's going to make a pass. He's going to make a hit. Just kind of one of those, rare players in the NHL that just can do everything. So definitely a big blow for the Canadiens in this final stretch of the season.
And, you don't want to slump at this time because, mathematically, the Calgary Flames are still in it despite, the Habs having a couple games in hand there. But, Mark Bergevin said it best that, you only have games in hand unless you win them, right? And Montreal certainly hasn't been winning as of late. And, just the offense has been a complete flop. Where, comes the solution is Cole Caufield. As we record right now, Laval has a complete week off until their next game. Cole Caufield has 3 goals in 2 games, 2-game winners against the Toronto Marlies. And, Laval's first in the division, but with the offense being dried up, Montreal should certainly, I elevate Cole Caufield to the taxi squad. If not, give him a couple games in the NHL and then send him back down. It's not that big of a deal if you send him back down. A lot of players get sent back to the AHL to develop their game a lot.
Exactly. We talk about Zegras, being sent down just to, get that more development. But, Cole Caufield so far in 2 games in the AHL has, looked like one of the best players on the ice every time he's touched it. So I think, definitely with the Gallagher injury, especially, I think the Habs definitely need to look at, bringing Cole Caufield up just because he can provide, some of that offense that Gallagher, they're missing without him.
And, let's move on to, the Toronto Maple Leafs and Jack Campbell. What a story that has been. He's on a current 11-0-0 win streak right now, but he set the Leafs franchise record for most consecutive wins with 10. He later broke the NHL record, which was set by Carey Price. Fantastic story there. And the Leafs acquired Dave Riddick to, basically not have the same problem as Colorado did in the playoffs where they lost both of their starters. So, I kind of like the trade in that sense. But yeah, this is the Leafs' best first 40 games of a season in franchise history by 3 points. In an 82-game season, the Leafs would be on pace for 117 points, which would smash the franchise record of 105. So, it seems like the Leafs have everything in place to go on a deep playoff run.
Yeah, exactly. This is the best Leafs team that we've definitely seen probably in our lifetimes. They didn't really have much for the first half. When we were growing up, the Leafs, were always, bottom of the league, laughing stock. But, it's allowed them to, get these young prospects, like, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, and William Nylander, obviously all great top 6 forwards now. It's going to be exciting to see what the Leafs are able to do in the playoffs. They were actually buyers at the deadline, pretty aggressively. So it'll be interesting to see how those pieces, work in. And, just for Jack Campbell, congrats to him. And it's just nice to see.
Trading season did get underway Wednesday as we saw Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac get traded to the New York Islanders for AJ Greer, Mason Jobst, a 2021 Isles first round pick, and a conditional fourth round pick in 2022. The conditions on the pick are if the Isles make the Stanley Cup final, the fourth becomes a third in 2022 or 2023. New York has the option. From my knowledge, the 2022 and 2023 drafts are equally as strong. So, it seems as though that New York really got the win in this deal, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't see AJ Greer or Mason Jobst ever playing for New Jersey.
Yeah, I think Kyle Palmieri was one of the top, guys that was going to be moved at the deadline, and New York was able to land him. But not only him, but his teammate Travis Zajac, who had spent his entire career, with the Devils, playing over 1,000 games for them. I think it's just a really good acquisition for the Islanders. I think Kyle Palmieri brings some scoring. They lost Anders Lee, so they're looking for more scoring in the top six, obviously. Zajac just brings some leadership. Last year, they got Andy Green at the deadline, and that's another New Jersey Devil. Lou Lamoriello, obviously the GM, so they got a lot of Devil influence on them. And this team does remind me of those cup-winning teams, the New Jersey Devils, maybe not the most talented always, but just a hard team to play. And I think, they're going to be that in the playoffs this year.
Well, I mean, let's just take a quick look at their center depth. They have Matt Barzal, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, Brock Nelson, Casey Cizikas, and now Travis Zajac. So, those are five great centermen right there for the New York Islanders that are capable of playing that center position on a nightly basis. So, yeah, to your point, they are going to be a really tough team to win against.
No, exactly. And, with the way that Varlamov has been playing this season, it's just going to be a tough team to beat in seven, especially, with Barry Trotz behind the bench.
Kevin Fiala scored his first career hat trick. And, if we revisit the 1-for-1 Fiala for Granlund trade, I guess Minnesota would do that again 9 times out of 10. And what a pickup he's been. I think he's one of the more underrated wingers in the NHL. He has an unbelievable wrist shot, in my opinion. And, to add on to just that performance by the Minnesota Wild, Kirill Kaprizov recorded his third 3-point performance, which is the most by any Wild rookie in franchise history. Luke Johnson scored his first NHL goal, 4 power play goals for one of the worst power plays in the league. That is obviously something the Wild want to keep going if they want to have success in the playoffs, because if we remind ourselves, the refs like to put their whistles away come playoff time. They like to, let the players play it out. So when you get a power play, you absolutely have to convert on it.
No, for sure. 2 years ago at the deadline, it was Kevin Fiala for Granlund 1-for-1. And I remember, right when that trade was announced, a lot of people thought that Nashville was, the winners in that trade by far, because, at that time, Granlund was, solidified as, top 6 forward, kind of like 60-point sort of guy. And Kevin Fiala was a little unproven. But like you mentioned, his wrist shot, last year, he went on a tear to finish the season and then kind of carried it into the bubble. I remember watching him against Vancouver in the play, and he just had a great shot and a good nose for the net. And then you got guys like Kaprizov. If they're really working, if they're clicking, that power play can be effective. Jared Spurgeon came in, 3 power play assists in this game. I think that might have been what they were lacking. They tried Sutter, they tried Dumba on that top power play, wasn't really working. So, carrying into the playoffs, they just got a lot of momentum right now, and we'll see what Minnesota can do.
On Thursday, we learned that this was the first day in over a week, I believe, that there were no positive cases within the Vancouver Canucks organization. So, they are on the road to recovery, like we mentioned. And, Jay Beagle actually had a false positive, but he is out for the rest of the season, unfortunately. So, it just sucks to see the Canucks go through this. But yeah, I mean, for some reason, the NHL wanted to have them play 19 games in 31 days, but it's going to be a tough stretch for them. And I'm, super, I just hope that, Travis Green realizes this is a real tough challenge for the Canucks players to face. And, like you mentioned, he's probably going to have to get creative on the lineup card.
No, exactly. And, Vancouver last year, they were a success story, making it to the conference semifinals, losing to Vegas in 7. This year, they were a little disappointing. So if you can take anything away from this season, it's going to be, these next 19 games. If they can finish strong and carry something going into next season, it could be a good thing for the Canucks. But, obviously on just a COVID base, it's just nice to see that no positive cases, within the organization, even if it was a bad stretch.
I should mention that, it seems as though that Vancouver will have to rely on Braden Holtby more because Thatcher Demko did test positive. So, Holtby, he had a rough stretch to the start of the season. To me, it seems as though with Thatcher Demko signed long-term, Holtby is the obvious choice to leave, exposed in the expansion draft there as a goalie. So, we'll see if he gets claimed. And if he doesn't, well, Vancouver has a logjam in net with Michael DiPietro coming up soon, Holtby and Demko.
Yeah, with all the back-to-backs as well, I think Holtby's going to see the net a lot more, and it could be good for him. If he can prove, that he's the Braden Holtby of old, maybe Seattle takes a chance on him. I think as of now, I think he wouldn't be one of the goalies selected for that, new expansion team. But if he can do well in this final stretch, maybe he can, be that starter for Seattle next season.
Tanner Pearson signed a 3-year, $9.75 extension with the Canucks, so it's around $3.25 million as an AAV. I thought this was kind of a cheap contract for once in Jim Benning's tenure there. I kind of agree with him getting paid $3.25 a year. With his point production there, I think it'll be good on the second, maybe middle six, bottom six there for Vancouver. I like this deal.
Yeah, Tanner Pearson played in LA and then he got traded to Pittsburgh and then found his way in Vancouver. And, alongside Bo Horvat, I think, the two of them, play on the second line together. And I think they have some good chemistry. So, locking him up for 3 years, could be a top 6 piece. He could be a bottom 6 piece. He could play anywhere in the lineup. I think, it's just a good contract by Jim Benning with it, which is, something pretty rare.
Rasmus Dahlin became the youngest Swedish defenseman in the NHL to record 100 points. Great accomplishment for, a guy that has really regressed this season, with his defensive play. He hasn't, really been putting up the offensive numbers that a first overall pick would be accounted for.
Yeah, he's had a tough season, as have, the whole organization within Buffalo. But, you look at all the Swedish defensemen in NHL history, you got guys like Hedman, Lidstrom, just, for him to be the quickest to record 100 points, it really does go to show that he's actually been, rather impressive in his NHL career so far. Obviously, this year, is going to be one that they don't want to focus on too much, but hopefully Rasmus Dahlin is able to rebound from this year and, have a successful career.
The Oilers completed a perfect sweep of Ottawa 9-0-0, and this comes as a surprise to everyone because Ottawa's been a pest in that North Division, picking off wins here and there from basically every other team except Edmonton.
Yeah, they really just knew, what game plan to bring in every time they went to play Ottawa. We lost to them last season, I remember, and, they weren't even as impressive as they are this year. So it's nice for just, to see the Oilers be able to capitalize and, finish that 9-game sweep.
Connor McDavid tied Bobby Orr for the 4th fewest games needed to get to 360 career assists. Him and Draisaitl were a complete dynamo in that series against Ottawa. They were finding each other all the time. You can look at it on the box score on the score sheet. So yeah, to your point, like Edmonton just figured out every single way to beat Ottawa.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the Oilers, the teams that they're able to beat up on are the teams that are a little bit slower just because, the Oilers obviously have McDavid, but, the Senators can somewhat match the Oilers' speed. So it is impressive, that they were able to win all 9 games, and I think all 9 were in regulation as well.
Alex Ovechkin scored his 266th career power play goal, passing Brett Hull for 2nd all-time. Dave Andreychuk sits first all-time with 274 power play goals. So we can assume that Alex Ovechkin will pass that record in no time. I can basically assume that by the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly. You think of Ovi, you think of him just, in his office on the power play, just being able to rip, one-timers, one after another. And, for him to be number one all time on power play goals, it just makes sense. And I think, maybe even this season he's able to do it, but, absolutely in his career, he'll be able to, be number one on that list by the end of it.
Steven Stamkos was injured in a Tampa Bay Lightning win on Thursday night. And, it seems as though Stamkos has had his fair deal of injuries the past couple of seasons. He scored one goal in the Cup final. He came back and then he just, left essentially. He was injured again. He tweaked something. But yeah, it sucks to see one of the stars in the NHL keep getting injured.
Yeah, exactly. Steven Stamkos, when he has been on the ice, has been, a very impressive player, Hall of Fame, absolutely. But, with his injuries, it's just been tough. And, especially as a fan, Stamkos is just a fun player to watch when he is on the ice. So it's unfortunate, when he's not able to play. What could have been, had he had not been injured. He scored 60 goals, I think in one of his first 5 seasons. So Stamkos, it's unfortunate. And, as soon as I read that notification that he got hurt again, it was upsetting.
On Friday, top Sabres prospect Arttu Ruotsalainen made his NHL debut, and a few games later, he scored his first NHL goal, a complete rocket, top cheese against the Philadelphia Flyers. So, Buffalo, again, are showing off their future with Dylan Cousins and Arttu Ruotsalainen playing together. I'm starting to like this Ruotsalainen guy. I think he can definitely have a good career there in Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly. Buffalo, Rick Jeanneret, he's a legend. I think, this is his last or second last season. So someone else is going to have to take on the role. But Buffalo's got some tough. They got a lot of, Rasmus's. They got Ristolainen. So, a lot of familiar names. But, it's nice to see him. It was a beauty of a goal that he scored on Sunday.
Alain Vigneault received both doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. Quick bit of information there. Great to see coaches are getting the vaccine as well.
Mm-hmm. And I saw the Rangers were getting vaccinated as well, promoting it on their social media. Just a good thing for the league, for sure.
Jim Benning and Dr. Bovard, who is their team doctor for Vancouver, had a press conference on Friday. That was their first press conference since the whole COVID outbreak. So the nuts and bolts, as always, the virus was likely found at a restaurant. No COVID protocol breach within the NHL guidelines. No players were hospitalized. They want players to get back to full health before returning to practice. There was a whole range of COVID symptoms. The Canucks are going to play all 56 games. Family members were still getting sick. And Jim Benning said the infamous quote of, doesn't foresee any cap issues in the future. So if you're that confident, then you have to imagine, if a team has a lot of cap space, if they offer sheet Pearson or Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, it's going to be an issue. I think, every single offseason, it's been the fans, speculating, is this going to be the year that we see, a big RFA get qualified? And, we haven't seen it so far. But, Pearson and Hughes, those are two big pieces. That's a number one center and a number one defenseman that you want to lock up, as long as you can. So hopefully Jim Benning is able to do that.
Alex Ovechkin again made headlines, another career accomplishment, scoring his 457th career even strength goal and surpassed Brett Hull, who had 456 for sole possession of 6th most in NHL history. He can get it done 5-on-5 and 5-on-4. I think that Ovechkin can have a real shot at passing Gretzky. It's crazy to think, but I think it could happen.
Yeah, I think, one of the, if not the, in my opinion, the greatest goal scorer of all time, Alex Ovechkin. I think, the only thing that, prevents him from, being undisputably that is if he is number one all time in goals by the end of it. So, just cheering for him, each and every goal he scores, it's going to, equate to something. And hopefully he's able to, pass Gretzky in his career.
So sources confirmed that the Isles had a package deal for Sabres Taylor Hall, but the addition of Travis Zajac and Cal Palmieri trade sweetened the pot, and Lou Lamoriello went with that. So, the Isles could have replaced Anders Lee with Taylor Hall, and, that would have been one stacked offense. Instead, they go for a package deal, which kind of complements, I think, Travis Zajac and Cal Palmieri trade really complements their whole offense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it fits their scheme a lot better. I think, when Patrick Laine got traded to Columbus, I kind of, thought it was a weird fit. And I feel like Taylor Hall with the Islanders would be a weird fit as well, just because, he's known for being, super elite offensively, but, a little bit of a liability on defense. So, I think a good thing overall that trade, never went through. And I think the Islanders definitely got, the better deal.
So the Panthers acquired Brandon Montour in exchange for a 2021 third-round pick on Saturday. I really love this deal for Florida as they're trying to replace that big hole by the Ekblad injury. Montour is quite serviceable. They signed Matt Kierstad a couple weeks back, and he has been great. So, I love this deal by Florida to kind of shore up on the Ekblad hole.
No, exactly. I've been really liking the moves that Florida's made, within the last couple of days. And, Montour just being, a right-handed defenseman can play both ways. He scored a couple goals for Buffalo against the Flyers in the game that they, finally broke the streak. So he's been proven to, score. Buffalo acquired Montour, I think it was 2 years ago for a first-round pick. So they turned a first-round pick into a third-round pick, unfortunate for Buffalo. But, I do like the fit for Montour going to Florida.
So we have another trade to announce with Colorado and San Jose. San Jose, they acquired a 2021 fifth-round pick in Greg Pattern, and they gave up, Devin Dubnyk to the Colorado Avalanche. So, the Avalanche getting more goaltending depth behind Grubauer there since Francouz is injured. And, like we mentioned, with the Leafs, they don't want to have the same problem like they did in the bubble.
Yeah, exactly. I think, Devin Dubnyk, he's had a lot of high points and a lot of low points in his career. So really, what goalie are we going to get in Colorado? I think, it's a good acquisition. I think at this point in time, we can assume that, Francouz is kind of done for the year because they have, Jonason and Dubnyk as well. Colorado just really preparing for a deep cup run, with making these depth moves.
There was a 3-team trade for David Savard. So Tampa Bay acquires David Savard, and it was actually announced today that Savard's going to be playing alongside of Hedman. So that's quite an introduction to your new team. Okay. Detroit got a 2021 fourth-round pick, and Columbus got a 2021 first-round pick, which is Tampa Bay, a 2022 third-round pick, which is also Tampa Bay's property, and Brian Lashoff. Columbus retains 50% of Savard's contract, and I'm not sure if Detroit retained any salary on David Savard, but that's the David Savard trade. Huge trade for Tampa Bay. They bolster up their top four. David Savard's going to be a great addition for Tampa.
Yeah, I think the Tampa Bay Lightning in the modern day is the closest thing that you're ever going to see to a real life, NHL franchise mode, NHL BGM mode. Just, the players that they have on their team, it's absolutely insane how they're able to, fit all these guys on one roster. And another thing I'd like to point out is, he's responsible for making the blueprint, but, even though he's not in Tampa anymore, Stevie Y is somehow able to, help the Lightning acquire a big piece at the deadline.
Wyatt Kalynuk got his first NHL goal for the Chicago Blackhawks. Another piece to their rebuilding team there. And, Chicago, they seem to be going for the playoffs there. I can't believe they've surprised me this whole season.
Yeah, I think for them, it's about consistency. Some games they do look like a solid team, and some games, they look like they have a lot to improve. But, a thing I've liked about Chicago this year is, with the absence of, Jonathan Taves, they've just been giving, it seems like a lot of young guys, a chance to play, and, they've been capitalizing on their opportunities.
Connor Brown scored his 7th straight goal for the Ottawa Senators, which is a new record there for longest goal streak. And, for all the players that they've had, I wouldn't think it would be Connor Brown to set the record.
Yeah, it's interesting. Connor Brown, when you think about the Senators, he's kind of an afterthought, but, a super solid piece, within that lineup. I think the Leafs, 2 years later, you can definitely look at them as the losers of that trade, as the Senators were able to get Connor Brown and Nikita Zaitsev, and we know what Cody Ceci did in Toronto, and it wasn't all that much.
On Sunday, Montreal acquired John Merrill from Detroit in exchange for a 2021 fifth-round pick in Hayden Verbeek. This move comes after waiving Mete, who got claimed by Ottawa today. So, I think, as a personal Habs fan here, I like this move. From what I see, John Merrill is a defensive defenseman there, and another stay-at-home defenseman that Habs just keep stacking up on. And really, teams here just have to prepare for injuries. And as we see, with recent Stanley Cup winners, they go through defense like no other, man. They, I'm not sure, but there's a graphic on TSN today, and there's like teams using 9 defensemen, 8 defensemen, and so that's where the depth comes into play. I like this move. I think he'll be better than Mete, and Mete just simply didn't work out in Montreal.
Yeah, I think, it's just on the defensive end, an upgrade from Mete. Mete, had a lot to bring offensively, even if it took him a while to get that first career goal. But, John Merrill, you're not giving up too much, a 5th round pick and, not a high level prospect just for, a depth defender. I think, it was a smart move by Mark Bergevin.
Toronto acquired Nick Foligno and Stefan Noesen for a 1st and 2 fourths. I really like this trade. It's a great addition for an already solid team there in Toronto. I think Nick Foligno, with acquiring him, allows Zach Hyman to play on the first line with Matthias and Marner. And, like we said a couple weeks ago, that line has so much chemistry that it looks bad when you split them up. Matthews and Marner, and then you throw Hyman in there. I love that line, that first line for Toronto. This is just a great trade for Toronto.
No, absolutely. And, they lost Travis Boyd and Jimmy Vesey on waivers this season. And that's kind of, the only, bad part of the season. And they're able, at the deadline to, acquire some pieces, like Noesen, he could be a good depth piece. And then Nick Foligno, he's just a guy, he's a great leader. He can contribute offensively, defensively. I just think it's a really good piece for Toronto. And I think, that it's going to be, what pushes them to being, on that next level and able to make a deep run in this playoffs.
We got some news on Henrik Lundqvist, and it is not good news. He is not coming back this season. He got more inflammation in his heart, so, not good whatsoever. But he said he was progressing really well in his training, so hopefully we will see him again before he announces his retirement.
Yeah, exactly. Just not the way that you want to see any player go. Hopefully he's able to, fill the crease once more, for a team, whether it be Washington or maybe he goes back to New York, but, unfortunate, just a legend. And, you're just hoping for him to, be safe.
Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar are going to Boston for Anders Bjork and a 2021 second-round pick. I think this is a great pickup by Boston. It addresses their need for a second-line left wing. And he's playing with Krejci, who's his center, and Krejci can give Hall the puck. Maybe Hall will put the puck in the back of the net more often. But yeah, I love this because, I think Hall performs better when not all the pressure is on him. And this allows the perfection line of David Pastrnak, Patrice Bergeron, and Brad Marchand to stay together.
No, exactly. I think when you look at Boston's, roster makeup, when you have that perfection line together, it's just an incredible line. But, it does, make for a little bit of depth issues, just, lack of scoring on the other 3 lines. But getting a guy like Taylor Hall, I think, is a great addition. And, they weren't even, they gave up Anders Bjork, who, is a good depth piece, and we'll see how he does in Buffalo. But, the biggest piece here is, a 2021 second round pick. And, Boston, they're looking to make a deep run. So that pick could even be looking like an early 3rd. So I think a good trade for the Bruins, for sure.
The Pittsburgh Penguins acquired Jeff Carter for 2 conditional picks. The 3rd round pick can become a 2nd round pick if the Penguins reach the Cup final. And the other condition is Carter plays in at least 50% of the games. The Penguins get the center depth they are looking for. Crosby, Malkin, and Carter as your 3 centers. And Ron Hextall reunites with, one of his longtime players.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I saw someone saying that it would be funny, if Ron Hextall and Jeff Carter were able to win the cup on the Penguins, just Flyers fans all around would be, hating on that. But I think it just really does give the Penguins a lot, Crosby, Malkin, and Carter, that as 3 centers down the middle, your first 3 lines. I think it's really good, just guys who can do a lot. And I think, I really like the acquisition of Jeff Carter.
Boston acquires some depth on defense in Mike Riley in exchange for a 2022 3rd round pick. Boston gets their much needed depth on the back end because, I mentioned that they're without with 3 of their top defensemen. From a Habs fan, Mike Riley did play for the Montreal Canadiens. He's a great puck mover. He can get the rush started. He can jump in the rush. And, this actually frees up a spot for, Ottawa's top prospect, Jacob Bernard-Docker, who should be playing his first NHL game this week or, in the coming weeks. So I think this trade is great for both teams.
No, absolutely. I think, just getting more, I don't know how the Senators acquired Mike Riley, but I doubt it was anything more than a third round pick. So, for them, they're just getting some draft capital and, Boston's getting, a puck, like you said, a puck moving guy. I think, he's solid. He can start a breakout by himself. He's had an okay year on Ottawa, just being that second, offensive defenseman behind Thomas Chabot. I like the move for Boston. Absolutely.
And there was actually an interdivisional trade in the North Division there. Toronto acquires David Riddick from the Calgary Flames in exchange for a 2022 third-round pick. Toronto gets depth behind Jack Campbell. That's all there is. I don't expect Dave could start games before the end of the season, but if Freddie Anderson does come back before the playoffs start, I expect Riddick to become the third goalie on the taxi squad there. And they don't want to have a situation where they play Hutchinson in the playoffs. So they're just getting some stability on the back end there. And Riddick actually does not have to quarantine due to it being an interdivisional trade. So he can start as soon as actually tomorrow. The Leafs play the Flames tomorrow. So that'd be kind of interesting to have Dave Riddick play against his former team.
Yeah, I'd actually love to see him get the start in that game. Just another depth move for the Leafs. I think, they're really, digging their heels in and realizing that, after the divisions, go back to normal, this might be the best shot they have at making a deep run in a while. So I think they're going all in this year, and it's going to be interesting to see, how far they can go.
All right, so let's get into today's news, which we haven't done at all during a Down to the Wire segment. So the Sabres were announced today that they are not trading Linus Ullmark. They still remain a priority to sign him. So it's good to see that, the Sabres are willing to not part ways with part of their future.
Yeah, Linus Ullmark, for me, he's special because I think it was Buffalo versus Vancouver in like 2015 or 16. And I think it was one of Ullmark's first career starts, and I was able to actually see it. He won the game, so it was interesting. And he's just grown into, a really solid goalie for them. That should be top priority for them to be able to re-sign him. He's just been, probably the best player on the team this season.
And Milan Lucic is actually going to play in his 1,000th game tomorrow. Huge accomplishment for Milan there. He has a Stanley Cup ring, but he played with LA. He's been bounced around there ever since he signed his long-term contract. Was involved in that James Neal trade, 1-for-1 between Edmonton and Calgary. So huge accomplishment for Milan Lucic for playing 1,000 games.
No, absolutely. You got to love the Luch, even though he's kind of, fallen off a cliff in terms of his production level, he's just still an interesting character and, just a guy that we're familiar with being in the league for the last, 10, 15 years.
Victor Mete was claimed off waivers by Ottawa. I think this is a great move by Ottawa. It allows him to actually get more playing time because in Montreal, you had the Sherratt-Weber pairing, Edmondson and Petrie, Kulak. Kulak was rotating with Romanov and Mete. So, Mete was in and out of the lineup. And when he was in the lineup, he didn't play a consistent game, in my opinion. So I think by him going to a rebuilding team, I thought Ottawa or Detroit would claim him. It ended up being Ottawa. So I think with him getting in Ottawa, I think he'll have more ice time to show off his skills.
Exactly. I was happy that he was able to go to a team like Ottawa just, so that he's given this opportunity. They lost Mike Riley, trading him to Boston, and, they obviously have Bernard-Docker who's going to step into the lineup. But, he's just got opportunity now in Ottawa, and hopefully, he can find himself, being stably inside their top six, for the future.
Sami Vatanen got claimed off waivers by Dallas. There were trade talks with Sami going from, I think Montreal is actually interested. Like Montreal's been interested in defense this whole week leading up to the trade deadline. So, I thought this move by Dallas, it's to bring in depth, but more importantly, I thought Jamie Oleksiak was going to get traded today. So I thought this move signaled the departure of Oleksiak, but that didn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Dallas is, on the outside of the playoffs looking in. Sami Vatanen would have been a really nice piece to see, add to a playoff team. last year he got traded at the deadline to Carolina, and he was solid for the Hurricanes, in their play-in series as well as, their series against Boston. So, hopefully he can, find some success in Dallas. I was interested to see him on waivers, honestly, but he's only got 1 year left on his deal. So I think it'll be a short, stay for him in Dallas.
Dmitry Kulikov got traded to Edmonton from the New Jersey Devils for a conditional 2022 fourth round pick, or 2021 fourth round pick, my bad. I don't know too much on Kulikov. I know he only has 2 points this season, but I think he's supposed to be brought in as a kind of a defensive minded defense there for Edmonton. But yeah, he's going to have to quarantine for 7 days. Once again, that got reduced from 14 to 7, but I'll throw it to you as an Oilers fan. What are your thoughts on the trade?
I think, the Oilers were also in on John Merrill, and the Habs ended up getting him. So, they looked to another option, which was Dmitry Kulikov. Just looking for depth defense. And I really do think, it does help our lineup. Our defense is super young, super inexperienced. You got guys like William Lagesson, Caleb Jones, some guys who maybe don't have as much experience, playing, in the playoffs, playing those big minutes. So, not to say big minutes, but I think Kulikov definitely, gives us a little more defensive stability. And I like the move. We're not giving up too much.
Chicago acquires Adam Gaudette from the Vancouver Canucks for Matthew Highmore. This comes as a loss for Vancouver because, Adam Gaudette, he's a former Hobey Baker trophy winner for best collegiate athlete, hockey player. But yeah, so Adam Gaudette, I thought he was going to be a part of the Canucks' future. He's a good bottom six forward, provides the physicality, provides the grit. But he doesn't really show off his skills because he's playing behind, great forwards such as Bo Horvat, the Bessers, the Pedersons, the JT Millers. So, you're not going to see Gaudette crack the top six in Vancouver. However, you could see him crack the top six or middle six in Chicago, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I really think it'll prove to be a good deal for the Blackhawks. I think Matt Highmore, he scored a goal against Edmonton in the play-in series last year. That's all I can remember him for. But Adam Gaudette, like you said, former Hobey Baker winner, just looking to, be able to provide, middle six. I think that's his target, to be a middle six forward in the NHL. And I think, Chicago's going to give him a good opportunity to do that.
Just scrolling here on the TSN trade tracker here. Next trade that we're talking about is the Matthias Janmark trade. That was another 3-team deal. Firstly, the Vegas Golden Knights acquired Matthias Janmark in a 2022 fifth-round pick from Chicago for a 2021 second-round pick and a 2022 third-round pick. But Janmark had to go through San Jose. So San Jose retains Janmark's like a bit of Janmark's contract. It doesn't say here what percentage, but San Jose got a 2022 fifth round pick. But yeah, so Matthias Janmark is on the Vegas Golden Knights, and I think this is a great deal for Vegas. Great depth there with Janmark. I think he performed to expectations in Chicago. But yeah, I really like this move for Vegas. It makes them tougher to play against.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just adds a lot to their already, somewhat deep forward core. And you just got to applaud Chicago. They're able to turn guys like Matthias Janmark. We'll get into it later, but they traded Carl Soderberg as well. Just getting these pieces, even if it is a second and third round pick, you could look at this as being a great trade for their franchise, 10 years down the road, depending on who they're able to draft. But just being able to, flip their guys that, they probably aren't going to, bring back for any assets, I think it is a win in their books.
Alex Iafallo agreed to a 4-year extension with the LA Kings. It's 4 years, $4 million AAV. This is a big part of LA's future here. And I really like this signing. I didn't really see Iafallo getting traded today. I knew there were contract negotiations leading up to the trade deadline, and I kind of thought that LA would eventually sign him.
Yeah, especially after they traded Jeff Carter last night, I expected Iafallo to stay put. You can't afford to lose too much to your, offense. But, going back to the Jeff Carter trade, maybe it provides, a guy like Quentin Byfield to, step into the lineup. I'm not sure if he will, but, there's a hole at center. But in terms of Iafallo, I think, he's solid. He's played alongside, Dustin Brown and Anze Kopitar this year. if he's able to be that top line left winger for them, $4 million a year is definitely a steal of a contract. And, 4 years, not too short term, not too long term. I just like the contract all around.
Like you mentioned, Colorado, acquired Carl Soderberg from Chicago in exchange for Josh Dickinson and Ryder Rolston. Ryder, he's an up and coming, scoring winger there for Chicago. I think he will do well there in Chicago. Ryder is the son of Ron Rolston, who played for New Jersey and was a part of many cup winning teams there. But yeah, Chicago again, trading off Carl Soderberg and making sure to get, young assets back.
Yeah, Carl Soderberg, played for the Avalanche, I think it was 2 seasons ago, and then signed in Arizona. I don't know if he was traded or signed with Chicago, but, he's back in Colorado, and I'm just trying to think, where does he fit into that lineup? They just got so much depth. It just gives them even more. And, Colorado is just going to be, such a scary team, not only this year, but, in the future as well to, win the cup each and every season.
Scott Laughton signed a extension there, 5 years, $3 million AAV, $15 million altogether. 5 years seems a bit much, but at $3 million, I think I'm fine with this contract. I like it. He provides grit and toughness. He can really do it at both ends of the ice.
No, exactly. I think Scott Laughton, he's been a solid piece for the Flyers for, a long time. And, they're able to lock him up at 5 more years. $3 million is not too much. I think, his role with that team is like third, fourth line center. But, he just does provide a lot. And he's one of those glue guys for Philadelphia, just being able to, I think, former first round pick as well. So, just a good contract, 5 years, not too pricey, and a guy that can do a lot.
Well, speaking of former first-round picks, I can use that to transition to the Sam Bennett trade to Florida in exchange for a second-round pick plus Emil Heineman. So Sam Bennett got more than Taylor Hall. But yeah, Calgary gets a second-round pick and a prospect back in for Sam Bennett, who really busted in Calgary, never really showed off, what he's capable of. So hopefully in Florida, he can wipe this, slate clean and get back on track.
No, exactly. And I think Joel Quenneville is going to like him just because, he's got a little bit of a Joel Quenneville mustache going. He's able to grow it out and look like the Lorax. But Sam Bennett, just a, former 4th overall pick. Thank God the Oilers didn't take him over Leon Draisaitl in that draft. There was rumors that that's the guy that they wanted. I remember a lot of Oilers fans were upset when we took Draisaitl over Bennett. So I think, 7 years later, we took the right guy, but, Sam Bennett could provide, a good bottom 6 role for this Panthers team. And I think, getting Montour, getting Sam Bennett, I think this Panthers team, they're prepared to go on a run, and it's going to be interesting to see, what they're able to do.
Philadelphia trades Eric Gustafsson to Montreal in exchange for a 2022 7th-round pick. Flyers retain 50% of Gustafsson's contract, which is $3 million for the 1 year. Montreal fleecing again. I think Gustafsson's price dropped as the hours progressed during the day. And, giving up a 2022 7th-round pick is really not much. The probability of that player becoming an NHL star, or at least in a consistent basis, is, very, very low. So, yeah, for what it's worth and, for what Gustafsson brings to Montreal, I like this deal.
No, yeah, same. Gustafsson, he's fallen off a little bit, but, only 2 seasons ago, I believe he had a 60-point season, something like that. So, a guy that could step in, potentially be a power play guy if a Petrie or Weber is to go down, just adding depth. And for a 7th-round pick, it's not expensive whatsoever. And I think, it just good move for the Habs.
Ottawa trades Eric Branson for a 2023 7th-round pick. This opens a roster spot for, Jacob Bernard-Docker, like we mentioned, the Josh Browns. The young movement is finally moving in for Ottawa. And, I like this. Branson never really played well in Ottawa, but yeah, I really like this a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you're getting a 7th-round pick, you're freeing up that roster spot for one of your young guys to, come in and step in. I think it's a good move for the Senators. And, I really just am intrigued. I like watching the Senators, just see how they're going to be able to build, the next generation of this team. And it's interesting to see, now we're getting all these guys, stepping up into the lineup. And we're starting to really see the future of the Senators.
Washington acquired some depth from the Philadelphia Flyers in Michael Raffl in exchange for a 5th-round pick. The year that 5th-round pick is in, it doesn't say here on the trade tracker here on TSN, but I'm assuming it's 2021. But yeah, Michael Raffl provides great bottom scoring there, and I think he'll be a great fit in Washington. Philadelphia would seem to be a seller today, despite them, not being so far out of the playoff race, but it does seem very unlikely that they'll make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think, Michael Raffl, he replaces, Richard Panik, who they, will get to in a trade later. But, just a solid depth piece. And I think, Washington, I think they're first as of now in that East Division. They won the Cup in 2018. And I think they're poised for another deep run. We'll see if they're able to get past the Islanders. They weren't able to do that last year. But I think the East Division is going to provide, 3 great matchups, no matter who they are, in that playoff.
Anaheim bolstered their defensive core by acquiring Hayden Fleury from Carolina in exchange for Yanni Hakanpää and a 6th-round pick. I really like this pick, this trade here by Anaheim because now in your top 4, all right, you have Hampus Lindholm, Cam Fowler, soon to be Jamie Drysdale, and Hayden Fleury. That's a great top 4 there. And, you could add Josh Manson in the top 6 as well.
Yeah, Hayden Fleury, I would have thought he went for a lot more than the 6th-round pick, and Hakanpää. Hakanpää was, I think he might be the NHL hits leader this year. I'm not too sure. I see him popping up in fantasy every once in a while because he'll have like a 8 or 9 hit game and people will go crazy. But Hayden Fleury, I think former 1st-round pick, just a really good move for, Anaheim, just getting younger, and, he could definitely blow up and be a good top 4 piece for them.
Brandon Montour was being interviewed. Florida, they got Brandon Montour to answer questions from the media, and he explained the adversity he had to face. So the coaching change, playing on his offside, there was no clarity within the role of his team, and very little power play time. So what that speaks to Joel Quenneville is to play him on the power play to really communicate. And what that shows me is that the Sabres had no communication whatsoever when Ralph Kruger was the coach. If that's what's happening to Brandon Montour, I can assume, or I can expect that's what's happening to most of, if not the majority of the Sabres players.
No, absolutely. I think, with Granato, they're trending in a, much better direction in Buffalo, but I think, the Kruger era is just, got a gray plague over it. When Buffalo acquired Montour a couple seasons ago, I was really excited. He was a top 4 guy for Anaheim, and I thought he was going to, be given, all the opportunity to succeed in Buffalo. Obviously wasn't able to, and through all this, it was an unfortunate time, but, we'll be able to see, now he's going to play for one of the, most winning coaches of all time in Quenneville. And, he really just, wants a change of scenery, going to Florida, and it'll be nice to see how he plays.
Moving on, the Vancouver Canucks traded Jordy Ben to the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for a 6th-round pick. I think this comes as, kind of like a missed chance for Winnipeg. I think there were better options on the market, but that could have been more pricier options. But, it's a premium price to pay if you want to battle for the Stanley Cup. You have to pay that price. And sometimes, the future is as important as it is, the current time. So I think Jordy Ben will be quite serviceable for Winnipeg.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the only thing that separates Winnipeg from being, a dark horse, quote unquote candidate to, a legitimate candidate is, their blue line. And I'm not saying Jordy Ben, fixes that, but he definitely does provide some stability, a guy that can play some, big defensive minutes. And, it'll be interesting to see, how he fits into that lineup. But, Winnipeg, also, bolstering up for a deep playoff run potentially. It's just going to be interesting to see all these playoff matchups. There's lots of storylines, and it's going to be, a really fun playoff, I think, to watch.
Chicago traded Madison Bowie, and I thought Bowie was still in Detroit, I'll be honest, but Vancouver basically replaces Jordy Ben with Madison Bowie. Vancouver also acquired a 5th-round pick. Chicago acquires a 4th-round pick. I think that Madison Bowie, never really showed He's been bounced around, Washington, Detroit, Chicago, now Vancouver. He's been in the AHL. This is what the market value is, I think, for Madison Bowey. There's not much more to it. Hopefully he can be a good bottom pair defenseman for Vancouver.
Yeah, I hope he does crack the lineup. He's got a Stanley Cup ring to his name. You mentioned he played in Washington. And I just remember, when they were hoisting the cup, seeing Madison Bowey on the ice being like, I don't think he played. But, he still got the ring being a part of that organization. Like you mentioned, he's just been bounced around. And, with guys like that, it's just unfortunate. And you hope that they, are able to find, a home. And hopefully Vancouver is that for him.
So as I was writing these notes, I don't know if it says in the edits, but I wrote down I wish the NHL was more like the NBA. And little did I know that a few hours later, Anthony Mantha, this was the big blockbuster. I think this trade is going to be more important, more broadcasted, more talked about than the Taylor Hall trade, because this is a hockey trade. We haven't had a hockey trade in over a couple of years. We see UFA deals that's being, UFA, like players getting 1 year left on the deal, getting traded at the deadline. Anthony Mantha has like 4 years left. So let's get to the trade. Anthony Mantha is traded to Washington in exchange for Richard Panik, Jacob Vrana, a 2021 first-round pick, and a 2022 second-round pick. What a boatload of players and draft picks for Washington to give up. It's clear to me that Washington is going full in for the Stanley Cup again, and rightfully so. Alexander Ovechkin and Nicholas Backstrom aren't getting any younger. Detroit, perfect. They have Vrana. I love Vrana. Great speed, great two-way game. He has great goal scoring as well. Richard Panik there to slot in until, one of their prospects develops. They get a 2021 first-round pick. Again, that will probably be a late first-round pick, but, this draft is really slim pickings due to the lack of scouting. So then you pick up a future 2022 second round pick. And we all know how deep that 2022 class can be. And, I'm super excited to see how deep that is. And Stevie Y, I think this is a trade that benefits both teams. Stevie Y did amazing. And I'm forgetting the Capitals GM name off the top of my mind. But yeah, what a trade. I'm super happy that we got a blockbuster deal.
No, yeah, me as well. And, you and I, we were kind of, negotiating when we should record the episode today. And, maybe if we had to record it at 3 p.m., we wouldn't have, gotten, the Anthony Mantha trade in time. So it's a good thing, we waited. I think it's just, a phenomenal package for Detroit. You got a guy like Jacob Vrana, who was a former first round pick. He's, I think, scored at least 20 goals last season. He's just a solid guy, can score. I think he's one dimensional in that element where he's just kind of like, a pure sniper, whereas Mantha, is a nice power forward. He can score, just provide a little bit of everything. But, also getting a first and second round pick, I think, Yzerman just did a really good job and got a really good package in return for, a guy that, maybe was a part of the future, maybe wasn't a part of the future. It was just kind of always, in the air, whether Mantha was, a part of the core or not. And I guess not. Excited to see what he does in Washington, though, for sure.
Well, here are I have a tweet pulled up on my computer screen right now. So here are the Red Wings draft stock. So they have 22 picks over the next two drafts, 12 picks in 2022, 7 picks in the first 3 rounds of 2021, including 2 first-round picks. I mean, the future is now for Detroit. And, it's fine because general managers and scouting, they'll have their hits and misses. But when you have, a combined 22 picks over the next 2 drafts, you better hope that you hit rather than miss.
Exactly. And, Yzerman, we see what he did in Tampa. They drafted very well and he was able to, get them a cup, even though it was the year after he left. Detroit just, they were in an unfortunate situation, post their 25 straight playoff making seasons, just because, they sacrificed so much of their future just to be able to always be in a competitive, state. And, they lost Zetterberg. He had to retire because of injury. Pavel Datsyuk went to the KHL. And it's just been a kind of, rough couple of years. But, hopefully these, picks, they've really been investing in these drafts. And, hopefully it's able, turn something in return for Detroit, and they're able to, make the playoffs once again.
So before we get to Pegasus predictions, let's go over Zach Hogan's power rankings for the North Division again. So at 1, he has the Maple Leafs. At 2, he has the Winnipeg Jets. At 3, he has the Edmonton Oilers. At 4, he has the Montreal Canadiens. At 5, he has the Calgary Flames. At 6, he has the Ottawa Senators. And again, not ranked is the Vancouver Canucks. I think like we've been talking about all season long, the 4 teams that are in the playoff race, that are in playoff positions in the North Division are going to be the 4 teams that make it. So even with Montreal slumping this week that we just saw, Calgary couldn't really make up ground. They haven't really made up ground since Sutter took over head coach. I'm super happy with how Montreal is still number 4.
Yeah, Hogan's kind of disrespected Montreal in the last couple of weeks, not really been able to give them much credit, but, finally has them within the top 4. And, those rankings, there's not much to argue with them. They're close to the standings, just the way that things are, you can't really argue with the way that, the wins and points have gone this season. It's pretty much just, hard to argue with any of those, with any rankings.
So we have a couple games on Tuesday night. Firstly, the Sabres and the Bruins. I got to give it to the Bruins. I'm super excited to see how Taylor Hall plays. Once, I'll actually be attentively listening to a Sabres game. It's going to be very fun to see the Bruins beat up on the Sabres. Flyers and Capitals. With the Caps acquiring Anthony Mantha, they seem to be the unbeatable force there in the East Division. I'm going to give the Capitals the win. Rangers and Devils. I'm going to give the Rangers the win over there. I usually give it to the Devils, but the Rangers are playing their hottest, going on the correct time to succeed. So yeah, I'll give it to the Rangers. Flames and Maple Leafs. I'm going to give it to the Maple Leafs simply because if the Habs do go on a colossal collapse there, I'm hoping the Flames get eliminated before then. The Lightning and Predators, I'm going to give it to the Lightning. Actually, by the regular season records, Lightning have 28 regulation wins and the Preds only have 23. So, 5 wins separate that. That's kind of crazy to think about. Panthers and Stars, I'm going to give it to the Florida Panthers after acquiring Sam Bennett.
I'll go with the Sabres over the Bruins, a little bit of a biased pick, always you like picking the Devils. I like picking the Sabres, even though it hasn't been successful for us too many times, I'll stick with it. And much like that, on that note, I'll go with the Devils over the Rangers. I'll go with the Leafs over the Flames. I think they're just the superior team with their new acquisitions. It'll be, nice to see. Hopefully Dave Riddick gets that start. I'll go with the Capitals over the Flyers. Like you mentioned, the Flyers seem to be selling at the deadline, even though they're somewhat still in the race. And, the Capitals, are just going to want to, win every game that they can. I'll go with the Lightning over the Predators. Lightning are just a really good team. And I'll go with the Panthers over the Stars as well. I think, they're solid. Some of their new pieces coming in. It'll be interesting to see how they fit. But, I think they'll beat Dallas in that.
Well, I'd like to thank again Nolan Thode for joining me on another edition of Down to the Wire.
It was a pleasure, Pags.